You took the heartbreak and turned it into healing. And now you stand tall, glowing, not because they left, but because you found yourself. And the glow that comes from self-discovery, self-love, and self-worth, that's the kind that never fades. They thought they were writing your story by playing with your emotions. They assumed their lies, manipulation, and betrayal would define you. But they underestimated the strength of someone who chooses to take back the pen. You are not the hurt they caused. You are the healing you gave yourself. Every time they broke a piece of you, they unknowingly gave you material to rebuild. Not weaker, but wiser. Not colder, but clearer. They thought they were the main character, but they were only a lesson. And now, you reclaim the narrative they tried to steal. No one gets to define who you are based on how they treated you. Their actions were a reflection of them, not you. You may have felt discarded, ignored, or used, but that's not your identity. It's just a chapter. And you have the power to flip the page, to shift the plot, to write a comeback so strong it silences every doubt, every lie, every illusion. You don't have to erase the past to create a new future. You just need to stop giving power to people who never earned your trust. The story is still yours. They wanted you to be the victim. It served their ego to see you broken. But you refused to stay down. You took the pain, examined it, and made it your teacher. You looked at the mess and found meaning in it. Not because you needed to forgive them, but because you needed to free yourself. You realized the strongest form of revenge is rewriting the script, not to get back at them, but to move forward for yourself. That's where the real confusion begins, for someone who thought they had control over your life's direction. Every time you stopped begging for answers, you gained clarity. Every time you stopped chasing closure, you found peace. That's when you started living for you, not for their validation. You understood that no one can give you the ending you want if you're still holding on to a broken beginning. So you let go, not because you didn't care, but because you cared more about your healing. The more you rewrote your story, the more power you took back. You were no longer waiting to be saved. You became your own rescue. They never expected you to become the author of your life. They assumed you'd always be the character reacting to their plot twists. But you've stepped into your own power. You choose the theme now. Growth, strength, and self-respect have replaced doubt and confusion. You decide the pace, the tone, the direction. And when they look at you now, they don't recognize who you've become. That's because they only ever knew the version of you that didn't know your worth. That version is gone. You stopped romanticizing potential and started honoring reality. You saw through the charm, the manipulation, the half-truths. And instead of explaining your pain, you processed it in silence. You no longer needed them to understand you. You needed to understand yourself. That clarity became your turning point. You saw the emotional games for what they were, distractions. Distractions from your growth, from your peace, from your purpose. And once you removed the blindfold, you couldn't unsee the truth. That vision changed everything. Every page you rewrite is a page they can't control. Every chapter you finish without their influence weakens the grip they once had on your mind. And that's what truly confuses them. Not your anger, not your silence, but your transformation. Your refusal to let pain turn you bitter. Your refusal to stay in a story that didn't honor your light. They didn't expect you to rise without their validation, but you did. And that rise is louder than any confrontation could ever be. You've started telling a different story now. One where your worth isn't negotiable. One where you love yourself enough to walk away from anything that doesn't feel right. Your boundaries are stronger. Your vision is clearer. You're not reacting anymore. You're responding with wisdom. You're not chasing anymore. You're attracting what aligns with who you're becoming. That evolution makes people uncomfortable, especially the ones who thrived off your confusion. But that's not your problem to solve. This isn't about pretending to be fine. It's about actually being okay with or without them. It's about rebuilding your identity from the inside out. Not around someone else's opinion, but around your own truth. You're not seeking revenge. You're seeking redemption. From the version of you that settled, that tolerated, that doubted. And every step you take forward is a win. Not just for the present, but for the future you're designing. A future that honors the lessons but doesn't live in them. So let them wonder what changed. Let them sit in the silence of your absence. You don't owe them updates on your healing. You don't owe them insight into your journey. What you owe is to yourself. To keep writing, building, rising. Because once you reclaim the narrative, no one can write you as weak again. You are not a supporting role in someone else's story. You are the author, the creator, the main character, and your story is just getting started. There is unmatched power in choosing elegance over ego. When someone betrays you, the easiest reaction is rage, revenge, or retaliation. But true strength lies in doing none of that. You rise, not to prove a point, but to protect your peace. You don't need to fight to show you're strong. You just need to stand still with dignity. Let them expect chaos and give them calm. Let them wait for a scene and give them silence. That kind of restraint confuses anyone who thought they still had emotional power over you. You didn't shrink. You just chose not to shrink to their level. That's grace. And not everyone knows how to handle it. You know your worth now, and it no longer depends on someone else's recognition. They may have taken your love for granted, but they don't get to see you crumble. There is a deep kind of satisfaction that comes from walking away without a word. It shows you have nothing to prove, no need to justify, no urge to get even. Just the quiet confidence of someone who knows that not every battle deserves their energy. You have matured beyond reactions. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's evolution. And the absence of drama becomes the loudest message they'll ever hear. Being graceful doesn't mean being weak. It means you're strong enough to stay grounded when everything around you tries to shake you. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to expose anyone to make a point. The truth has a way of revealing itself in time, and you're patient enough to let it unfold without interference. When you choose class over conflict, people don't always understand it at first. But soon, they see that real power isn't loud. It's composed. It's controlled. It's choosing your peace of mind over temporary satisfaction. It takes wisdom to respond with elegance when your ego is screaming for revenge. When someone hurts you deeply, the instinct is to show them you're not to be played with. But true confidence doesn't need validation. It doesn't seek attention. It simply walks away, knowing it can't be duplicated. And that's what stings. They expected you to act out, to beg, to cry, to explode. Instead, you left them with nothing but silence and strength. Instead, you left them with nothing but silence and strength. That's not being cold. That's being in control. And that control comes from healing, not hardness. When you choose class, you close the door without slamming it. You don't need an audience. You don't need applause. You just quietly exit the situation, knowing you left with your integrity intact. They may try to twist the story, but your actions will always speak louder than their words. You don't stoop to pettiness because you know that anything built on ego is temporary. What lasts is character, and yours will never be defined by the way someone mistreated you, but by how you responded. Let them wonder why you didn't react. Let them drown in the silence they created. That discomfort they feel is the result of expecting a broken version of you. But you've outgrown the need for dramatic endings. You understand that walking away gracefully is the ultimate closure. It gives no opportunity for manipulation, no space for guilt-tripping, and no fuel for their ego. It's finished. Not with a scream, but with a decision. And that decision becomes your freedom. People will often mistake grace for weakness because they don't know what it takes to stay poised under pressure. But behind your calm is a storm you've already conquered. Behind your smile is pain you've already processed. And behind your silence is a strength they never saw coming. You're not pretending to be okay. You've simply chosen peace over performance. But that's beyond prayer. You've simply chosen peace over performance. And that quiet confidence becomes your armor. It shields you from the noise, from the chaos, from the people who don't deserve access to your emotions anymore. You don't seek to destroy anyone's reputation. You just remove yourself from the story entirely. And that removal is powerful. It shows that you respect yourself too much to stay where love wasn't real. You don't throw insults. You don't throw shade. You throw boundaries. You build walls. Not to shut people out, but to protect what you've rebuilt. Because once you've healed, you don't entertain what broke you. Not even for closure. Not even for curiosity. Just silence, distance, and undeniable growth. There's a kind of glow that comes from not engaging, from not needing to respond to lies, rumors, or games. You know who you are, and that's enough. You no longer chase explanations, you no longer argue with confusion. You've stopped trying to make sense of someone who didn't even make sense to themselves. That clarity brings peace, and that peace is loud in its own quiet way. It's the sound of freedom, of moving on, of finally putting yourself first without guilt. So keep your head high, keep your energy clean. Let them watch you rise without their presence. Let them feel the absence of the version of you that tolerated their chaos. You didn't need to ruin them. You just needed to remove yourself. And now you're untouchable. Not because you're heartless, but because you finally know the value of a heart like yours. And anyone who couldn't honor it will be left confused by your grace, haunted by your strength, and humbled by your silence.